Hey friends, Jessie here. Today I'm going to offer us a slow flow with a focus on watching how our bodies respond when we move them around. So, kind of from that perspective, there's not a lot to it, but if you, like me, have a body, you know that that's not the entire story. Um, Something I've been examining in my own practice is how my emotions show up on the yoga mat. How, in the field of my body, like the entirety of my physical experience, while I'm practicing and moving, I will have little spurts of emotions or situations that are causing me anxiety will appear, or memories, sometimes happy ones. Sometimes I think of friends or ideas. And all of that I think is very natural. You know, I think part of the practice is being able to notice it and then come back to the moment you're in, like to be, how can you not be hijacked by those emotions or experiences? And lately, I've had a lot of feelings of anger come up on the yoga mat, if you can believe it, if you know me personally, or if you're friends with me online. I am not afraid to express my anger or my frustration. However, something that is in my practice constantly is how do I work with it, right? Like, how does it not just take me for the ride over and over and over again, which, like, it definitely does? How do I interrupt it and go, okay, this anger can be a tool. Maybe the emotion isn't anger for you. Maybe it's shame, how when shame shows up in your body, how can you honor it, hold space for it, and then also be like, okay, you need to be like transmuted. Like, how can I work with this sensation in order to move through it and integrate it back into the body? In my opinion, that's why we have a physical practice. That's why the traditions of yoga that include asana, physical yoga, hatha yoga, because the body is an incredible processing machine. One of my very favorite teachers, Judith Lassiter, says that your subconscious mind is your body. And emotions are they come through a part of the brain where, like, there's already been a nervous system response. By the time I am angry, my whole body has already gotten on the loop. So there's no shame. I guess I'll use that one again. Like, there's no shame in catching yourself on the loop. In fact, we have to get caught on the loop to get to practice getting off of it. If we don't encounter the rough stuff, um, a lot of times we just don't know it's there yet. And that's the beautiful part of having a body and a practice to explore it, is that whatever shows up, whether it's memories or sensations or things without names, like, we have a palette that we get to mix in, that we get to try stuff out, that we get to wipe clean and start over with, um, and a container, right? There's like a sounding board, a tradition, a lineage that we get to say, okay, this like has worked for a lot of people. How does it work for me? What does that mean as I show up? So that's just like what's been on my mind this morning. And we're going to start standing. So, uh, as a matter of fact, find some space at a wall if you have access to that, or you could use a chair, the back of a chair, the edge of a desk, or a table. You can get creative for this. Oh, my feet. Whew. All right. So you're going to come up to your wall or the back of your chair or couch or whatever you've got. You're going to stand with your feet about a hip's distance apart, side to side. And then you're going to bring your palms onto the wall about halfway between your shoulders and your hips, so that as you press into the wall, you can walk your feet back and come into an L shape. sort of a down dog at the wall. Whew, and it might take a little lifting and lowering. We don't want to collapse here. Oh, if you push into the wall enough, something will happen. And so here in this shape, see if you can get a full body experience. So um, become the knower of the field, as we say sometimes, um, where you're like, okay, I feel my toes, I feel my fingers, I feel my ears, I feel my belly button. Like, can you just notice everything? Maybe you push a little bit into the edges, your palms and your feet. Maybe you bend your knees or lift your shoulders a couple of times. Try to hammock your spine. And then walk yourself back up. Whew. And pause in Tadasana, mountain pose, just an anatomical neutral. Here, I'll turn to face camera. You stay where you are. I like to flip my palms forward here, but you can also keep them alongside your legs. Deep breath. One of the reasons that pranayama and breath practices can be so valuable as very powerful tools on the yoga mat is because many of them work with our nervous system. The place before language, the place before thought or emotion. So that when emotions arise, when thoughts appear, when reactions surface, we've already laid a foundation of infinite potential. We've already laid a foundation that says, like, nervous system is supposed to expand and contract. But right now, we're practicing toning, soothing, recalibrating. Even as tough stuff shows up, we are taking care of that most like instinctive part of ourselves. And go ahead and lift your arms up into the air. Big breath in. And then exhale, arms down alongside your body. Couple more with your breath. Arms lift in and then float back down out. Notice, pause next time your arms come down, how it feels to be aware of your shoulders, of your arms and hands. And we're going to bring our hands back onto the wall. If you moved, go ahead and bring your fingertips forward. We're going to stand on the left foot, cross your right ankle over your left knee, and sit your hips back for a supported standing pigeon. If crossing your ankle over your knee doesn't happen, you could always take a little kickstand tree pose to get some external rotation, or have your foot on the floor. You could bring your ankle in front of your knee, but I think that stretches something different. So try to get on ankle on the thigh if that's working, even if it means staying vertical. The depth you sit will affect different muscles. So again, it's not like a hierarchy of good to bad. It's a full spectrum of potential experience. A. Second side when you're ready. So I like to move a lot on the yoga mat. I like to shake things out. I like to kind of let things pulse. But there's also value in finding a place to sit. So just like our sort of our awareness, our nervous system, all of these experiences pulse. There's a contraction and an expansion. Try not to get too stuck in either end or thinking that that's like the ultimate goal, when really being able to ride the fluctuation is what we're looking for. So after you've done both hip stretches, come back to the top of your mat. Big breath in, arms lift. Big breath out, arms release. One more time, big breath in, arms lift. This time, bend into your right knee. Step your left foot as far back behind you as it feels like it'll go, and come into a crescent lunge. So everything is squared forward towards the front of the mat. Front knee is bent. Honestly, back knee can be as bent as you want. That's a way in my body. I know I feel like I get a little extra support. Oh, arms can be anywhere you want them to. Take a deep, full breath. And then exhale, haul your back foot up. And come up to stand. It's that kind of morning in my body. Maybe it's one in yours. Inhale, arms lift. And then exhale, bend the left knee. Step the right foot back. Big step. Big breath. So now that we're adding these more complicated shapes, coming back to your breath awareness practice, whether those are pranayama techniques that you know and love, or just the Ujjayi breath, the victorious rising breath, in and out through your nose. Even just like a big breath out can be your breath practice. But see if you can focus on what it feels like to breathe while you challenge your body. And then find a way to harness that and haul your back foot forward. Maybe shake it out. Maybe just find Tadasana. Deep inhales. Long exhales. What's coming up? Let it. Not because we're going to get taken for a ride. Like, we can't expect to not get stimulated by the world, by our bodies, by our lives. But we can learn how to be with ourselves when we get riled up and use it as a doorway instead of a wedge or a wall. And what happens when you let that feeling or sensation be a little longer, where all you do is breathe? Next breath in, lift your arms as high up in the air as you want. And then big breath out, soften your knees, hinge at your hips, fold forward. Fingertips to the floor, or blocks if you have blocks nearby, or the seat of your chair if that's what you were using to fold before. Bend into your right knee, step your left foot back behind you. Bring your left hand in line with your right foot. Lift your right hand either to your hip, your low back. I like sometimes bringing my fingertips to the cap of my deltoid, my shoulder. Or you could lift your arm up wherever it feels like you get the most connection to you. Press down into whatever's touching the floor and see if from that place, if you can reach back up and out in all directions. One more deep breath in. And exhale, right hand to the floor. Step back, downward facing dog. Palms come down, hips lift up. Spine gets long. So bending your knees in down dog is a fast track. Sorry, that's hard for me to say. To a long spine. So if you have me on the screen and you peek up here for a second, watch what happens when I'm going to do something I don't recommend you do. Watch what happens when I hyperextend my knees. My back rounds. So the opposite is also true. When I bend my knees, oh, my spine gets longer. I get a little more extension and a little more traction in space. So sometimes it feels good to bend one knee at a time. Go ahead and give that a try. See how your body likes pedaling out the knees today. See how your spine has room to get more space. And then come on down to your hands and knees. Oh, tabletop shape. So shoulders come over your wrists, hips are above the knees. If you want to cushion your kneecaps with a blanket, or I have this nice scarf someone gave me that is like my favorite yoga prop. It's not like a yoga blanket, it's just some scarf I like. So don't be afraid to get creative with ways to use props. We're going to keep the left hand down, right arm lifts up, press the floor away, reach your hand, open your chest, and then thread under. Reach your right arm all the way through. See if you can almost like scoot it even further so that when you bring the side of your head and shoulder to either the floor or a prop, you feel like you're getting like I feel like I got under the left shoulder a little bit more, if that makes sense. A little more stack. Whew. Try to reach both outer hips back behind you and see if the upper back, try to press into the right arm a little bit to rotate open extra. And then unwind, come back through the middle and pause. If it feels safe and comfortable, let your eyes close. And if you want, you can just let your eyelids get a little heavier. Maybe zone out at a spot on your mat. And watch what shows up. Like, pro tip, there's not a wrong answer. And instead of getting stuck on whatever it is, can you breathe it almost like you were folding it back in or like filing it away? What awareness does it lead to when you give yourself space to feel what you're experiencing? Keep your right hand down. Lift your left arm up. Ooh. Press into the floor. Reach up. Open your chest. Open your shoulders. Take your time. Reach under. I gotta stay here another second, so don't follow me. Follow you. When you're ready for the twist, take it. My body wants to hang out here a little longer right now. Oh. That's the whole idea, right? Especially in the now times of yoga where we're all kind of just doing it alone in our houses together. More than ever, your experience gets to be your own. You know, when you have a solid container to explore yourself, when you have the discipline to show up as you are, that's when there's infinite options. Without the container, without the discipline, we're just freewheeling. We're just getting on the ride, taking the loop. When you have something to reflect yourself back with, that's when things get interesting. Bring your right foot forward. Oh, all the way outside your hands. Come up onto your fingertips. Maybe scoot onto more of like the top of the front of your thigh as opposed to the ball of your kneecap. And then lift your chest, lower your hips. This like lifted lizard pose my teacher's been, I think that's what she's been calling it. Upright lizard. Anyways, there's two different ways to play lizard pose, right? There's the hips up, chest down. That's a little more front hip. Today we're looking for the quad stretch, the front body opening. So chest up, hips down. Couple more breaths. And then keep your left hand where it is. Reach your right arm straight back behind you. So don't pick your back foot up yet. I promise we'll do that today. I know it's like so tempting, it feels so good. Instead, think about pressing down with the top of your back foot and shin. So if your toes are tucked under, you may want to flip them. You can still do this action with your toes touched. Touched, tucked. Anyways. See if you can open more like we did in that revolved child's pose. So think about opening through the collarbones, through the pecs. Try to sit your hips a little lower, lift your chest a little higher. And then exhale, hands down. Come back either hands and knees or downward facing dog. Or both, you know. You could take a moment to stretch something, to flow if you're feeling like moving through chaturanga. Oh, and taking a back bend. Move with you. And then come back to your hands and knees so that you can haul your left foot up. Scoot yourself around so that you can hips down, chest up, lizard pose. Always remember to drink water when you want water. I'm not one of those that thinks there's right times for hydration. I think the time you want it is. Take as many more breaths here as you want, and then open up. Back foot presses down, back knee drags forward, front foot drags back. See if you can get some lift from your hips sitting down to open the front of the chest more. Hoo-wee. Deep breath. The more complicated the container, the harder it is to like bounce around inside and know where you are. So if stuff comes up, just keep breathing and notice, like, what is there to even be aware of here? How can you bring it back to the field of the body, of like your whole person? And then exhale when you're ready. Step back, downward facing dog. Take a few breaths there. And then deep breath in. Shift forward to plank. Stack your shoulders over your wrists. You might have to scoot your feet back a little so your heels are over the balls of your feet. Deep breath in. And then exhale, bend your elbows. Try to lower down all one long spine. So that when you get to the floor, you can flip your feet, roll your shoulders, lift your chest. Maybe this is not your first back bend. You may have taken a cobra already, so you do you, but I know me and my body today, I had to take that a little slow, a little low. And we're going to take a few rounds of breath, inhaling, chest and shoulders lift, exhaling to release. So as you inhale, try to root your shoulders down towards your hips, hug your elbows in, and then reach the top of your head away from your tailbone. Exhale, melt your heart. Let your forehead come down. For a moment, lift your shoulders up towards your ears, and then roll them back even more when you lift up next time. Deep breath. Exhale, release. Stack your palms, forehead to the back of the hands. What shows up? I don't know about you, but like, sometimes the first back bend or, the 20th back bend, depending on the day and the sequence, really brings up a lot for me. And when I'm feeling anger in my life or in my practice, I notice that it lives in my shoulders sometimes. So I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen for you. I'm just using it as an example to remind you that, like, your body holds shit and remembers stuff. And it's okay when certain actions bring that up. So we're going to lift our chest and shoulders. Keep your right forearm forward, parallel to the front of the mat like a kickstand. Bend your left knee. And then reach back for your foot with your hand. See if you can hold inside your foot, thumb facing up so that your big toe and your thumb are pointing in the same direction. And then square everything down to the mat. So for a second, let your shoulder roll towards the floor. Square your shoulders. Press into the top of your left knee. Press into your right forearm. And then try to keep your shoulders square and kick your foot into your hand to lift your chest. That's going to be hard. Your body's going to want to roll to the right and just kind of wing open to the left. See if we can be more diligent about the container. Be like, okay, you know what? We are going to adhere to this, not for any like real big reason, but for just the the control portion of the experiment. Like, what's it like to give myself this parameter to function within? Meh, let it go. Nice and slow. Whoo. Option to stack your palms and let your forehead come down, or take any other neutralizing shape. And breathe. Notice what's going on inside. What sensations are here? As you breathe, can you make more space? And just watch what happens. Second side. So, depending on what's going on with your quads, your shoulders, your back, reaching your foot with your hand here might not be the best option. You can always grab a strap or use a scarf. You can always take an Anjaneyasana or a different quad stretch. So just remember that you know you best. When you reach back for your foot with your hand, notice if your right knee winged out to the right like mine did. Try to walk it in a little bit so that you can square your chest down. So I let myself lower for a second, a more neutral place in the spine to be like, okay, this is squared. And then as I press down into my thigh and back with my foot into my hand, I'm trying to keep everything more forward, like those first crescent lunges we did. That's it. Me. That's it, me. It's one of my favorite yoga jokes making yoga videos is I always respond as if I'm talking to people because that's more normal, but then I'm only talking to me and that's not normal. So I like to say, good job, me. That's it, just like that. Which is exactly what I'm saying to all of you. Release when you're ready. Breathe it through. And just notice, is it easy to get caught up thinking that we are these reactions, that we are our thoughts, that we are our feelings? Because we're not. We're more than that. And that doesn't make our feelings or thoughts any less real or any less useful as tools. It just means that, by the time we're having those thoughts and feelings, our body has already responded. And so coming to a place on the mat that's more about integration and connection, I think really is how we make what we experience a doorway. So whenever you're ready, find your way back to down dog. Maybe you want to flow a little or take another back bend. Maybe you already did. It felt very nice in my body to stay put. So feel free to stay put if that's still happening for you. You could take down dog or child's pose. You could pause for a sip of water. Like 10 deep breaths worth of something. From down dog or hands and knees, bring your right foot forward, back knee down. Feel free to use a blanket or something to cushion your back knee, and lift your chest and shoulders for Anjaneyasana. So here in Anjaneyasana, we're going to offer ourselves a shoulder stretch. Here's how we're going to do it. Bring your arms up as high in the air as they want to go. They could be out to the side too a little bit if that's better for you. Lift your shoulders up towards your ears for a second and see if you can sit your hips a little lower. So like we did in those low lizards, we're thinking chest up, hips down. Then from here, keep your shoulders where they are. They're probably a little bit close to your ears. We're going to work with that. Keep your shoulders crowding your earlobes and reach your hands forward and your shoulders forward. Wait, no. Your hands back and your shoulders forward. Now, roll your shoulders down and on your back and interlace your hands behind you. Whew. See if you can press your palms together, hug your upper arm bones together, maybe with a little extra bend in your elbows to widen your collarbones. We're doing it again. Bring your shoulders up towards your ears and then down and around on your back. Keep your chin a little tucked, press back with the back of your skull. And then option here to release your arms up alongside your ears. Keep hugging your back knee towards your front heel. You might be shaking. Me too. Breathe deep. And then tuck your chin, hug your inner thighs, lift your chest and shoulders. Left arm forward, right arm back. Option to bring your fingertips to the tops of your arms to see if you're really opening the chest or just moving your arm bone. Just very real. See if you can hug your inner thighs, lift from your core to rotate a little bit deeper. And then bring your left hand down inside your front foot. Reach back with your arm and chest, even though your fingertips are on your upper arm here. Then reach back. Bend your back knee. Maybe your foot and your hand make friends. Even if they don't, drag the back knee forward, front heel back. Press up to roll your shoulders back. Press up. Press down, press back to lift up. There we go. And then exhale, release. We're going to come into a hip stretch of your choosing here. So you could come back to chest up, hips down lizard. You could lift your hips and lower your chest for lizard. Or you could come into an upright pigeon, Ekapada Rajakapatasana prep. If in pigeon your right hip doesn't come to the floor easily, or you can't get your right knee wider than your right hip, a blanket or a bolster is going to help you open your hips. I like to stay more vertical in my torso here, so a lot of times the prop I will reach for in pigeon is blocks so that I can get my hips down, chest up. The forward fold pigeon is like a different bird. It's a great bird. It does something different, just like those two lizard variations. Lots of lizards, lots of birds. Yoga. If you're interested in more front of the back leg stretch, feel free to bend the back knee. That same action, only now it's not opposite foot. No, it's like the belly, right? So here, square your chest and shoulders forward, kick your foot into your hand. Again, your body's going to want to open like I just did towards the camera. Like that's natural. Your foot's taking you that way. Hug your inner thighs, square things forward, and then see if you can move back without losing the front plane orientation. Go ahead. When you're ready, release. We're going to take the second pigeon. So we're going to fold our way forward over the front leg. Option to bring your forehead on a block or your hands or anything you want, the floor. Breathe deep. What's coming up? Not because we're trying to fix it or even really like identify it more than that it's happening. We're just getting good at noticing. That's like really what I think my practice is doing most of the time. I'm like noticing and utilizing. I'm seeing what shows up and then how I can work with it instead of trying to isolate or get rid of or like get stuck with. These hip openers usually have a lot to offer in that department. So if you feel yourself overwhelmed, like trust that that's okay, like that's normal, and that the way we all deal with it is our own, but that the breath, in my opinion, is usually my first tool that I reach for when I feel like it's getting to be too much. And when I follow the breath, it leads me where I'm trying to go. Whether that's like more stillness to get a little deeper, or it's really like an avenue to start to work your way out of the pose, which is what I'm sure many of you are doing now. I am. Oh, when you come out of that pigeon, I like to shake my right leg up into the air, either in down dog or in hands and knees to kind of let things unwind. If you want to flow between sides, help yourself. And then however you want to get there, left foot comes forward, Anjaneyasana. Cushion the back knee if you want. Lift your chest and shoulders. We're going to do the same stuff on this side, only we're going to do a neck stretch variation for the shoulders. So, oops, sorry, plant. Let's see. Arms go up, shoulders lift, hips sit down. Now I'm going to interlace my hands behind the back of my skull and hug the elbows in. Shoulders lift. Plug the shoulder blades down and on the back. Curl up. Keep your chin a little tucked. Press back with your shoulder blades and down. Press back with your skull and down. Sit your hips a little lower. Maybe you drag your back knee forward to lift up a little and kind of go back to that stage one. And then option to reach your arms alongside your ears. Engage your core. Breathe deep. And then hug your inner thighs to lift up. Right hand forward, left hand back. Open up. Again, bring your fingertips to your shoulders. And then like work with, is it actually the front of the chest and the shoulders opening, or is it just my arms mobility? Because we need both. So identifying what's happening is useful. It's not just arbitrary. It's not to pick us apart. It's to connect deeper. So see if you can do that. How can you get back to a whole body experience here? Maybe getting taller, maybe trying to look at the different parts of your body. And then keep your left hand where it is. Bring your right hand down inside your front foot. Reach open with the chest. Bend your back knee, lift your foot, and then open up. Maybe your left hand finds your right foot. Either way, actions stay the same. Ground down into whatever is on the floor to hug in and up and rotate. Whew. That's it. One more deep, full breath. And then exhale, release. Take your hip opener of choice. If you're coming along for the ride, we're walking our left foot to the right so that we can bring the shin on the ground. Knee is wider than the front hip. Back knee scoots back for a vertical pigeon. So, Ekapada Rajakapotasana is a back bend. So Ekapada Rajakapotasana prep is that hips down, chest and shoulders up. The forward fold is just a different version of that. Again, neither is better or worse. They just do different things. So we're starting upright. Whew. Like immediately my brain just like started a to-do list. Not about yoga, which is its own conversation, but immediately my brain was like, other stuff. Think about other stuff. Like, which is useful because I get to ask myself, all right, why can't we just pay attention to this? What about here feels like too much? So if the feeling is anger, like what is our anger righteous for? Where is it coming from? Like how can it be sort of a map to what's going on beneath the surface? If that map includes bringing your foot to your hand, you can play around with keeping your chest square as you kick your foot into your hand. And if it doesn't involve that on this side, like don't even stress it. That means that there's enough where you are, and that is what we're looking for, is like being able to show up in every moment knowing that it is full of infinite potential. Every moment has the ability of increased awareness. That's kind of what we're looking for here in this little test kitchen on our yoga mat. When you're ready, release the back foot, lower yourself down, take the forward fold, breathe deep. Well, whenever you're ready to come out of this shape, trust that. We're not looking to have the same experience here. We're just all using like the same container, the same template. That doesn't mean it's going to go the same way or that we're going to need the same things. We just get to trust that it's worked for a lot of people and that we're sort of in a good framework. And so maybe that framework is offering you some more movement, another, like one last little vinyasa for our practice, or a movement you're looking for. But we're going to meet up in a child's pose. And we're going to be there for a couple minutes. So, excuse me. Got a frog in my throat. If you'd like to make this more supported and restorative with some props, you can grab a bolster or some pillows. I've been enjoying a version of child's pose. I mean, if you're comfortable just on the floor in child's pose, like I know some days I am and some days I really want the props. So you have permission to do what works for you. I like taking a blanket. Here, let me move this actually though. I kind of want this under my feet. You know, we just spent all this time connecting to our bodies. So listen to those signals that say, no, this could be better for me. It's like literally what we're trying to calibrate here, is lining up our anatomical reality with our emotional, mental, and spiritual reality. Woo! So I take that blanket and I plop it back between my heels and my feet, kind of on my calves, and it makes almost like a little butt hammock, for lack of a better term. You can also put blocks underneath your butt, or a second bolster if you've got, or pillows if you've got those. I like to walk myself down onto the bolster. You might have to adjust your stuff. Some days I want more height. Like maybe throwing a block underneath. Actually, today is one of those days. um, Tossing a block underneath your bolster or putting a rolled blanket or a second pillow there. But wherever you are, come down into a space where maybe there's more going on inside than outside. So sometimes when the container is more complicated, it's a little bit easier to do that noticing work because there's more going on. It is more demanding. It's more specific. When we come down into a shape that is less demanding in some ways, it inevitably becomes more demanding in other ways. And so maybe this pose is physically demanding for you in your knees and you have to make accommodations for that, or maybe this pose is just hard in your brain. Maybe sitting with where you are becomes the practice, eh? Eh? Maybe the whole point of stirring the pot is to watch things move. See where they land. Come back to your breath. And see if you can watch your inhales and exhales, whatever that means to you, whatever practice makes the most sense. Whether it's a formal pranayama practice or it's just an intuitive kind of breathing. See if whatever shows up, if coming back to your inhale and exhale can be the focus. So when you notice yourself thinking, sometimes I just say thinking, like thinking, and then it kind of kicks me back to taking a deep breath. If you want to turn your head the other direction, if you've got it facing one way, make sure you give yourself time both sides if that serves you. If your forehead's down or your head only likes to go one direction, don't even worry about that. Help yourself up, move the props out of the way. Oh, we're going to come onto our backs. So you may want to have your props nearby. And by may, I mean have your props nearby. Blanket, I like to have my little scarf thing for under my head, and then my blanket can be on standby. And actually, I'm going to put my sweatshirt on, so we're not getting back up, people. So when you're ready to cozy up with your socks or your sweater, I like to kind of do that when I transition to the floor. I feel like it helps signal to my nervous system, like, okay, we're moving towards the rest and digest part of our practice. Yeah, it's my skis. It's what I'm about. So when you get onto the floor, give yourself a moment to get everything good. And then cross your right ankle over your left knee. So this is that same figure 4 shape that we took standing at the beginning of our practice. Only now we've got the floor as a container. Like when we stood, our hips could move back into space. Now they can't. So you actually might be feeling a deep stretch here after the other hip openers we offered ourselves today. And like, I'm not going to lie, like I get a little angry about it. Like my leg is shaking and my brain in all of its infinite possibility is like, oh, why is my leg shaking? And so there's the practice, right? Like whatever that is for you that shows up where you're like, okay, that's a reaction. That means that there's something happening in the part of my brain that doesn't have language, that is signaling this fear, anger response. So what can I do? Well, if I conjure an Ujjayi Pranayama and I deeply inhale and exhale through my nose with my throat muscles contracting, I'm going to soothe the vagus nerve. So that's our fight or flight star of the show. And I just respond back to my subconscious self, to my body, to my nervous system, that we're safe, that we're acknowledged, that there is space for whatever shows up. And I don't know, dudes, my thigh stopped quivering. And chicken and egg. We've been hanging out in this hip stretch for a minute. So it's a both and, right? It's a conversation. It's a spanda. It's a contraction and expansion. Nice and easy. Release the stretch. Let your right leg come forward on the ground. You know what? Drop your left knee out to the left. I don't know. I was just feeling that. If that don't work for you, don't worry about it. And then lengthen your left leg out to meet the right. And just take a moment. Sometimes in these quiet shapes where there isn't quote unquote a lot going on is another time my brain checks out. So notice that, right? Is your tendency, and this is like I think very common, and I know my own experience, like is your tendency to get stuck in all sensation or no sensation? Like are those the checkout points for you? Like maybe it's hard to find the middle where you're like, ooh, there's actually still a lot of sensation to be aware of here in this kind of quiet place. I don't have to distract myself. And then when you feel like it's time, we'll bend the right knee and cross the left ankle over the top of your thigh. Start out by pressing your right foot into the floor and your left outer ankle and shin bone into your right thigh, just to engage. You might even draw your pinky edge of your left foot up towards your knee, just to activate your peroneals and your tibialis anterior and the outer line of your leg. And shaking might occur, quivering, resistance, fluctuation. And so instead of pretending that it's not, what happens when you say, like, yes, yes, and yes, my leg is shaking, and I'm going to let it shake. And I'm going to breathe deep because it's okay for these muscles to simultaneously engage and lengthen. Because opening the body is not a linear path. And sometimes you have to do the opposite action to get the desired result. There's a temperance involved. That's freaking cool. Having this space to explore your experience as an entire person, an entire body, is such a valuable tool. And in the spirit of that, how can our responses, our reactions, our experiences also be valuable tools? I'll give you a valuable tool. I couldn't help myself. Oh, whenever you're ready, take your time. You could stay here a little bit longer if that's serving you. You might already be out of the pose, but let your left leg come long out in front of you. Drop your right knee to the right. Take a few breaths there. And then lengthen both legs out in front of you and pause. And when you're ready, draw your knees up into your chest. You can either hold in front of your shins or behind your thighs. And take any movement that feels good. You could rock around a little bit. You could bring your knees a little wider apart side to side and sort of reach them towards the outer sides of your rib cage and up towards your armpits. You could also let your knees go forward into your hands with your legs wide or together. That'll do some low back tractioning. And then keep your right knee in, let your left leg come long. Take a twist. Right knee all the way across the body to the left. Option to grab a blanket, a bolster, a pillow to support your right knee and shin, or to slide under your right shoulder. That can be a both and situation too. Couple more deep, full breaths. And take your time switching sides. You are more than welcome to stay here a little longer. We're going to Shavasana after these twists, so this is literally a wind down. It's like what goes on in my brain, folks. I just have a camera and share it with all you. But if you approach it like that, where we're kind of hypothetically like visualizing that we're wringing ourselves out. There's no real grounded science in like quote unquote wringing out your organs, but I think emotionally it's real. I think there's like a science to that. There's like a pseudoscience to that, I guess we could fairly say. But um, I think about like all practice. Oh, go ahead, find your second side when you're ready. As many or as few props as you want here. If you imagine like your practice is a washcloth, and all practice you've been building condensation, you've been adding heat, you've been moving and folding and changing your shape. And now here at the end of class, you're wringing that washcloth out, like all of um, the salt of our efforts. It's been that kind of year. All the salt of our efforts gets kind of like shook back out, gets literally wrung back out into the ether, into that infinite potential of every moment. Like we don't have to keep it to gain it. We don't have to hold our awareness so tight that we cling to it, that we get stuck on the loop. We just get to enjoy it. There's like a cosmic dance that happens in our pulsation of energy. Cool. I feel like that's good news, right? It's like, oh right, like I'm supposed to experience everything that I experience, if for no other reason than like that's what's happening. And showing up in the moment we're in is an extremely powerful tool. So whenever you're ready to come out of there and onto your back, take one last symmetrical something. So either knees in the chest, a happy baby, a little Dvipada Yogi Dandasana, oh, something altogether different. If you have a better idea, which I believe you are the one having your experience. Ugh. And then grab a bolster or a blanket for under your knees if that's something you're interested in, or a pillow or blanket for under your head. I'm gonna like cover myself up with a blanket here. This is like a powerful trick. Check it out. So I like don't want to move. So I'm going to take my little feet and give it to my little feet. And then I'm going to straighten them out and kind of like tuck under there. So I kind of pin the blanket on the floor. Yeah. So that I can get covered up without having to get up. So the more you know. It is absolutely worth the time every time to get more comfortable for Shavasana. Even if it's getting comfortable in like the idea of like, all right, this could be better, but this is where I am. Like if you're like, I didn't want to move at all to even get my props, sometimes there's space for that. Um, the comfort of not hassling ourselves. And so when you end up in a shape that you feel like you could rest in for a few minutes, give yourself a couple of full breaths all the way in and out. Let your awareness scan from the backs of your heels all the way up through your legs, whatever's touching the floor or a prop in your backside of your body, and your shoulders and hands and head. And see if with every breath out you can get a little more on the ground. Maybe that's physical, maybe there's like a literal weight that you sort of release into the mat, into the floor you're on. Maybe it's emotional. Maybe you're able to let go of what's holding you away from rest. Just for a moment, just for a minute. Don't worry, your brain is really good at picking it back up. That's why we get to have a practice. But for a few minutes, can you just rest and breathe? And notice yourself here on the ground. And gently start to breathe movement back into this shape. And see if, like we did in Down Dog at the beginning of our active practice, can you have a full body experience here on the floor with as little or as much movement as you want? Just all of you. Your physical body, your emotional body, your spiritual self, your brain, your reactions and feelings, your thoughts, the beyond. What is it like to be infinite in your options? Without a container, it can actually be really disconnecting. But when we give ourselves something to reflect back with, and us to notice and try on, that's when our experience becomes a doorway. Take some time to either come onto your side for a few breaths, and when you're ready, use your limbs to support you as you come up to seated. Or flop up to seated if you're me. It might feel grounding to bring your hands somewhere on your body. So your legs, your chest, maybe the floor feels more grounding for you. And just take a moment to reflect on what you were able to notice, what it felt like to be aware of this part of you. We'll offer a little gratitude and acknowledge for all the seekers who came before us. All of the yogis and their teachers, the long lineage of this practice that really gives us such an effective container with which to explore our infinite options. And thank you all so much for moving with me and exploring this practice together. Hail yourselves and have an awesome rest of your day. Bye!